I want to tell you the story of Final Fantasy VII. This should be accessible to those who've never played it before, so if you ever wondered what this legendary game was about, here it is. Let's talk about the story that begins with a flower girl walking through the dark streets of a massive industrial city and ends with the planet itself rising up to defend all life. But this isn't just any story. This is the tale of Final Fantasy VII, a narrative so powerful that it redefined what video games could make us feel. For those unfamiliar, Final Fantasy VII is an RPG. It was released in 1997 for the original PlayStation, and it became one of the most beloved and influential games ever made. You don't need to know anything about the game or the Final Fantasy series to understand this story. It stands completely on its own. Picture this. It's 1997, and players around the world are sitting in front of their televisions, controllers in hand, expecting another simple adventure about heroes saving the world. The opening cinematic shows a close-up of a young woman's face, her green eyes reflecting something ancient and sad. Then the camera pulls back to reveal the massive industrial sprawl of Midgar, a city that looks like it's been built to devour the very ground beneath it. But within the first few hours, players realized they were experiencing something completely different. This wasn't just a game about good versus evil. This was a meditation on identity, memory, environmental destruction, corporate power, and what it means to be human in a world that seems determined to drain the life from everything it touches. What makes Final Fantasy VII's story so enduring isn't just its epic scope. It's how it uses the personal struggles of its characters to explore these universal themes. The relationship between the main character, Cloud, and the villain, Sephiroth, isn't just a conflict between hero and villain. It's a mirror showing us two different responses to discovering that everything you believed about yourself was a lie. Our story begins in a place called Midgar, and understanding this city is crucial to understanding everything that follows. Imagine a massive metal plate suspended hundreds of feet above the ground, so large it covers 8 entire city districts. Above this plate, in the artificial daylight of electric illumination, live the wealthy and the powerful. Below, the perpetual twilight of what are called the slums. Millions of people scrape by in a world that never sees real sunlight. This isn't just urban planning, it's a symbol. The upper plate doesn't just block out the sun, it blocks out hope itself. The people below live in literal shadow of those above, breathing recycled air and drinking filtered water, while the elite enjoy clean skies and fresh air. The Shinra Electric Power Company, think of them as a corporation so powerful they basically run the world, has built this monument to corporate power, harvesting something called Mako energy. Mako is essentially the lifeblood of the planet itself, a green glowing substance that powers everything from streetlights to massive machines. But here's the catch. Extracting Mako is slowly killing the planet. Think oil. Picture 8 massive reactors that look like industrial cathedrals, each one piercing the earth like a needle drawing blood. Every time someone in Midgar flips a light switch, they're consuming the planet's life force. The green glow of Mako energy is beautiful, but it's the beauty of death, spiritual essence extracted and turned into electricity. The developers at Square, the company that made the game, created Midgar as more than just a backdrop. The city breathes like a living organism. It has a circulatory system, the train network, and organs, the reactors, a brain, the upper plate where decisions are made, and a body, the slums where the actual work gets done. There's something both magnificent and terrifying about Midgar. It represents the pinnacle of human achievement and the worst of human values. The districts don't have names anymore. They did once, but people forgot them. They're referred to as sectors now, a symbol of the mechanical, soulless life lived by those below. In Sector 7, people have built a community around a bar. In another area, an old church has become a sanctuary where a young woman somehow manages to grow flowers, real, living flowers, in soil that should be too poisoned to support any life at all. In this world of steel and artificial light, we meet our main character, Cloud Strife. From the very first moment we see him, something feels slightly off. He's almost too perfect. Spiky blonde hair, glowing blue eyes, an impossibly large sword strapped to his back. He looks exactly like what you'd expect a video game hero to look like, and that's the point. Cloud claims to be a former member of something called Soldier. Think of it as an elite military unit with superhuman abilities, created by the Shinra Corporation. These aren't just regular soldiers. They've been enhanced with Mako energy and other treatments to make them faster, stronger, and more resilient than normal human beings. Being a soldier is like being a superhero in this world. If you pay close attention to Cloud during these early scenes, you'll notice he's confident one moment and confused the next. He knows things he shouldn't know. Then he doesn't know things he definitely should. When people ask him about his past, his answers are slightly wrong. Close enough to be believable, but off enough to be concerning. The massive sword Cloud carries, it's called a Buster Sword, isn't just a weapon. It's almost like a psychological security blanket. Cloud carries it like he's trying to prove something, not just to others, but to himself. Everything about how he moves and speaks suggests someone who's performing a role he's not entirely comfortable with. Throughout the early parts of this story, Cloud experiences what he calls headaches, sudden, painful flashes of memory that don't quite fit in with his version of events. He'll see glimpses of silver hair, hear the sound of flames consuming a village, feel the presence of something vast and malevolent watching him. These aren't just random visions. They're clues that something is very wrong with Cloud's understanding of his own past and who he is. The genius of Cloud's character is that he represents something many of us can relate to. The feeling of not being quite sure who we really are, of wondering if the person we present to the world is authentic or just a performance we've gotten good at. Cloud's been hired as a mercenary by a group called Avalanche. Now, depending on who you ask, Avalanche are either eco-terrorists threatening innocent civilians, or freedom fighters trying to save the planet from corporate destruction. The game deliberately presents this moral ambiguity. Their methods are violent, their attacks include civilian infrastructure, and innocent people die in their attacks. But their cause is literally the survival of all life on Earth. The leader of this particular Avalanche cell is Barrett Wallace, a man whose right arm has been replaced with a machine gun after a Shinra attack destroyed his hometown and killed his wife. Barrett's transformation is both literal and symbolic. Trauma has literally turned him into a weapon. His rage burns like a furnace, fueled by personal loss and the knowledge that Shinra is slowly murdering the planet. But here's what makes Barrett more complex than just any angry terrorist. He's a devoted father. His adopted daughter, Marlene, represents everything he's fighting for. A future where children can breathe clean air, where the planet isn't being drained of life to power corporate profits. Every decision Barrett makes is weighed against one question. What kind of world will Marlene inherit? With them is Tifa Lockhart, Cloud's childhood friend, who now runs a bar called Seventh Heaven in the slums. Tifa recognizes Cloud immediately when he shows up, but there's something puzzling about his story that she can't quite put her finger on. She's genuinely happy to see him again. They grew up in the same small town. But the Cloud she remembers was very different from the confident ex-soldier standing in front of her. Tifa serves as the group's moral compass, the one who reminds them that their methods must be worthy of their goals. Her bar isn't just a business, it's a community gathering place that serves as cover for Avalanche's operations. She maintains the human connections that give her fight meaning, because without those connections, they'd just be another violent group causing destruction. The game doesn't shy away from the consequences of Avalanche's actions. When they blow up their first Mako reactor, people die. Not just Shinra employees, but innocent civilians who happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. The explosion causes power outages that affect hospitals, homes, and schools. The game forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. When is violence justified? What price is too high to pay for the right cause? How do you fight a system that holds all the power without becoming monstrous yourself? When Cloud crashes through the roof of an old church in the slums, literally falling from the sky during a mission gone wrong, he lands in what feels like another world entirely. Here, in this forgotten place, a young woman named Aerith Gainsborough tends a garden that shouldn't be able to exist. Picture this. In a world where natural flowers have become extinct above ground, where the soil is poisoned with industrial runoff, where sunlight never reaches the slums, somehow this woman has coaxed real, living flowers from barren earth. Aerith represents everything that the industrial world of Midgar has tried to destroy: natural beauty, spiritual connection, and hope for the future. Her bright pink dress might seem impractical in the grim industrial wasteland of the slums, but is actually a powerful symbol. She's like a flower that somehow bloomed in concrete, proof that no amount of corporate power can completely crush the human spirit. She sells flowers on the street, completely impractical business in a world where most people have never seen a real flower, because she believes beauty has value even when it serves no practical purpose. But there's much more to Aerith than her role as a symbol of hope. She's being pursued by a group called the Turks. Think of them as Shinra's elite secret agents, for reasons that aren't immediately clear. What we learn is that Aerith is incredibly special. She's the last pure-blooded member of an ancient race called the Cetra. The Cetra were the planet's original guardians, people who could literally hear the planet's voice and understand its needs. They lived in harmony with the natural world in a way that modern humans have forgotten. But the Cetra civilization was almost completely destroyed 2,000 years ago by a catastrophe that the game will gradually reveal. Aerith has inherited this ancient connection to the planet. She can hear things others can't, sense things that are invisible to normal people. She knows, in ways she can't fully explain, that the planet is in terrible pain. Every Mako reactor is like a wound that won't heal, and she can feel that pain as if it were her own. The relationship that develops between Cloud and Aerith is complex and touching. She sees through his tough guy act almost immediately. But unlike Tifa, she doesn't have a shared history that makes things complicated. She likes Cloud for who he is underneath the performance, not for who he's pretending to be. The real story begins when our heroes storm Shinra's headquarters, a massive tower that serves as both corporate office and fortress, to rescue Aerith from the company's clutches. But when they reach the top floor, they find the president of Shinra dead in his office, killed by a sword so long it's almost like a spear. Cloud recognizes the weapon immediately. It belongs to Sephiroth, a legendary warrior who was supposedly killed years ago. But before we go any further, we need to talk about who Sephiroth was, and more importantly, what he became. Sephiroth was once Shinra's greatest hero. Imagine if Captain America worked for a corporation instead of the government. He was a member of Soldier, but not just any member. He was the strongest, most skilled fighter the program had ever produced. He had flowing silver hair, green cat-like eyes, and he carried that impossibly long sword called the Masamune. He was everything that people like Cloud aspired to be. But here's where the story gets complicated, and this is crucial to understanding everything that follows. The Sephiroth that Cloud and his friends encounter throughout most of their journey isn't Sephiroth at all. What they're seeing is something called Genova, a shape-shifting alien creature that can perfectly mimic any form. This creature is being controlled remotely by Sephiroth's will, but Sephiroth himself hasn't left his location in the far north of the planet. He's been there for 5 years, suspended in crystallized Mako energy, slowly growing in power. This distinction is absolutely crucial because it reframes the entire story. Every time the party sees Sephiroth deliver a monologue about his plans and then fights a grotesque monster labeled Genova Birth or Genova Life, they're actually fighting the same entity. This alien shapeshifter that's been wearing Sephiroth's face like a mask. The party is chasing a biological puppet while the real puppet master pulls the strings from a distance. The reason this alien creature can mimic Sephiroth so perfectly is because it's had access to his memories, his mannerisms, even his voice. But occasionally, its true nature bleeds through. Hence, why each Sephiroth encounter ends with fighting something that looks monstrous and alien, rather than human. To understand Genova, we need to go back 2,000 years to when this alien creature first crash-landed on the planet. The Cetra, the planet's ancient people, called it the Calamity from the Skies, and that name tells us everything we need to know about the devastation it caused. Genova didn't conquer the Cetra through superior technology or overwhelming force. It destroyed them through something far more insidious: deception. The alien could perfectly mimic the appearance of anyone, and it used this ability to infiltrate Cetra communities by taking the forms of their loved ones. Imagine the horror of embracing someone you trust completely, only to realize too late that they're not who they appear to be. But Genova's mimicry wasn't just visual. It could access the memories of those it imitated, making its deception perfect. A Cetra might encounter what appeared to be the deceased spouse, complete with shared memories and intimate knowledge that only the real person could possess. The emotional devastation of such encounters would be beyond description. Once Genova had gained the trust of its victims, it would infect them with a virus that gradually transformed them into monsters. The infection wasn't just physical, it was spiritual, corrupting the very essence of what made the Cetra who they really were. Families would watch their loved ones slowly become something alien and terrible, all while remembering the person they used to be. The Cetra eventually managed to seal Genova away, but the cost was their civilization itself. Their numbers were so depleted, their culture so shattered, that they never recovered. The few survivors scattered across the planet, their descendants gradually losing their connection to the planet's voice until only bloodlines like Aerith's retained any trace of their ancient heritage. When Shinra scientists discovered Genova's body in the northern crater, they made a catastrophic error. They assumed it was a Cetra, one of the ancient people who'd been able to speak with the planet. This mistake led them to begin the Genova Project, an attempt to create artificial Cetra who could help them find the Promised Land, place of boundless Mako energy that would solve all their power needs, prophesied by the Cetra. Sephiroth was the crown jewel of the Genova Project, though he didn't know it at the time. Before his birth, his mother Lucrezia had volunteered for an experiment where her unborn child would be injected with Genova cells. Dr. Hojo, scientist who performed the procedure, told the young Sephiroth that his mother's name was Genova and that she had died giving birth to him. This lie shaped Sephiroth's entire life. He grew up believing he was special, that his extraordinary abilities came from his connection to the ancient Cetra. He became Shinra's greatest hero, a soldier of unmatched skill who led the company's forces in the war against Wutai. His silver hair and green eyes made him instantly recognizable, and his prowess in battle made him a living legend. But Sephiroth's strength came from a source far more terrible than anyone realized. The Genova cells in his body didn't just enhance his physical abilities. They connected him to the alien consciousness that was slowly influencing his thoughts and perceptions. As he grew older and more powerful, that influence became stronger. The transformation wasn't sudden. If you look carefully at the records of Sephiroth's career, you can see subtle changes in his behavior over the years. He became more withdrawn, more contemptuous of human weakness, more convinced of his own superiority. What seemed like the natural evolution of a legendary warrior was actually the slow corruption of a human mind by an alien parasite. The final corruption came in the mountain village of Nibelheim, when Sephiroth was sent to investigate a malfunctioning Mako reactor. In the reactor's depths, he found Jenova's body preserved in a tank, along with research documents that revealed the truth about the Jenova project. In a single night, everything he'd believed about himself had crumbled. But here's the tragic irony. Even as Sephiroth learned the truth about Jenova, he chose to embrace the lie that had defined his existence. Rather than rejecting his connection to his alien destroyer, he decided to become its heir. If Jenova was his mother, then he would finish what she started. He would become a god, absorb the planet's life force, and use that power to travel among the stars as Jenova had once done. The burning of Nibelheim wasn't just an act of madness. It was a ritual of transformation. As the village burned around him, Sephiroth was symbolically destroying his human past and embracing his alien future. The boy who'd once dreamed of being a hero was becoming something far more terrible, a destroyer of worlds. The brilliant cruelty of Sephiroth's transformation is that it mirrors Cloud's own identity crisis, but with opposite outcomes. Both characters discover that their sense of self is built on lies, but their responses to this revelation define who they really are. Cloud's true story is almost too painful to bear. He was never a soldier. He was just an ordinary Shinra infantryman who was too emotionally unstable to qualify for the elite unit. The spiky blonde hair, the glowing eyes, the confident demeanor, none of it was real. The real Cloud was a shy, awkward young man who got into fights because he thought he had to prove himself, but who usually lost because he wasn't as strong as he wanted to be. 5 years ago, Cloud was in Nibelheim not as a soldier, but as a faceless grunt accompanying the real heroes, Sephiroth and Zack Fair. He was there when Sephiroth discovered the truth about Jenova, there when the legendary warrior snapped and burned the village, there when his own mother died in the flames. But he wasn't the hero of that story, contrary to his beliefs. He was just another victim. He believed he was the hero. He believed he was sent to Nibelheim to investigate the reactor as Sephiroth's partner and soldier. Only later, after piecing his fragmented memory together, would he come to realize that he was just cannon fodder and another failed experiment. When Sephiroth killed Tifa's father during his Nibelheim rampage and mortally wounded Tifa herself, it was Zack who fought the legendary soldier. Cloud, finding Tifa bleeding and apparently dead, flew into a berserker rage and managed to catch Sephiroth off guard, running him through with his own sword. But even this moment of heroism came at a terrible cost. Sephiroth's retaliation left Cloud near death. After the Nibelheim incident, both Cloud and the gravely wounded Zack were captured by Dr. Hojo and subjected to horrific experiments. Hojo was trying to test his Sephiroth clone theory, the idea that anyone injected with Jenova cells and exposed to concentrated Mako energy would be compelled to seek reunion with Jenova's body. Zack's strong constitution and stable psyche allowed him to resist the treatment. But Cloud's mind, already fragmented by trauma and guilt, shattered completely. For 4 years, he existed in a catatonic state while Hojo's experiments continued. When Zack finally managed to escape, he had to carry the unresponsive Cloud with him. The journey back to Midgar was Zack's last heroic act. Pursued by Shinra soldiers, he fought desperately to protect his friend, but he was eventually cornered just outside the city. In his final moments, Zack entrusted the Buster Sword to Cloud, telling him to live for both of them. Cloud's mind, broken by years of experimentation and trauma, couldn't process what had just happened. Instead, it began constructing a new identity using fragments of Zack's memories and personality. When Tifa found him at the train station, his fractured psyche latched onto her presence and used her memories to fill in the gaps, creating a false persona that combined Zack's confidence with Cloud's own desire to be the hero he'd never been. The false memories weren't just psychological. They were reinforced by the Genova cells in Cloud's body. These cells allowed him to access not just Zack's memories, but fragments of other people's experiences, creating a patchwork identity that felt real, but was built on a foundation of lies. As Cloud struggles with his fractured identity, Aerith begins to understand the weight of her own destiny. Being the last Cetra isn't just about being able to hear the planet's voice. It's about being responsible for its survival. The planet is dying, its life force is being drained away by Shinra's reactors, and she's the only one who can do anything about it. Aerith's journey from flower girl to savior is marked by a series of painful revelations. She learns that her mother, Ifalna, was also a Cetra who died trying to escape from Shinra's laboratories. She discovers that Professor Hojo had been hunting her for years, wanting to use her abilities to locate the Promised Land. Most importantly, she realizes that stopping Sephiroth will require her to sacrifice her own life. The relationship between Aerith and Cloud takes on new dimensions when viewed through this lens. She's not just falling in love with a confused young man. She's seeing the ghost of Zack Fair in Cloud's borrowed memories and mannerisms. Her feelings are real, but they're complicated by the echo of her first love and the knowledge that their time together is limited. Aerith's behavior throughout the game makes more sense when you realize she knows how the story ends. Her insistence on enjoying small moments, her determination to experience everything she can, her willingness to put herself in danger, all of it stems from her understanding that she's living on borrowed time. The famous date scene in The Gold Saucer takes on tragic undertones when viewed this way. Aerith is trying to create one perfect memory with Cloud, knowing it might be their last chance to be together. Her line about wanting to meet the real Cloud isn't just about getting past his false memories. It's about connecting with the genuine person underneath, the one she'll have to leave behind. As Cloud and his friends pursue the shape-shifting creature across the planet, they learn about Sephiroth's ultimate goal, which revolves around two ancient sources of power that need explanation: the black materia and something called meteor. In this world, materia are crystallized concentrations of knowledge and power. Think of them as magical gemstones that allow people to cast spells or enhance their abilities. Most materia are small and contain specific abilities like healing or fire magic. But the black materia is different. It's a massive dark sphere that contains knowledge of how to cast the most destructive spell imaginable: Meteor. Meteor isn't just a spell, it's an extinction-level event. When cast, it summons a massive asteroid from space, large enough to create a wound in the planet so severe that all of the planet's life force, the life stream itself, will flow to that wound in an attempt to heal it. Sephiroth's plan is to position himself at the impact site and absorb all that concentrated life energy, transforming himself into a god with the power to destroy and remake worlds. The black materia is hidden in a place called the Temple of the Ancients, a massive, maze-like structure built by the Cetra as both a repository of their knowledge and a prison for their most dangerous secrets. The temple itself is alive in a sense, constantly shifting and changing its internal structure to prevent unauthorized access. When Cloud and his friends finally reach the temple's heart, they're faced with a horrible revelation. The only way to obtain the black materia is to shrink the entire temple down to the size of a marble, and anyone inside when this happens will be crushed to death. It's the Cetra's final safeguard, ensuring that anyone who seeks this power will have to sacrifice everything to get it. Here's where the story takes its cruelest turn. As the temple begins to collapse and transform, Cloud suddenly loses control of his own body. The Genova cells that were injected into him create a psychic link to Sephiroth, and through this connection, Sephiroth forces Cloud to hand over the black materia. Cloud watches in horror as his own hands betray him, giving the ultimate weapon to the very enemy he's been trying to stop. This violation of Cloud's free will isn't just a plot twist. It's a form of psychological torture that strikes at the core of what makes us human. Cloud realizes that his sense of autonomy, his belief that he's in control of his own actions, is an illusion. He's been dancing to Sephiroth's tune without even knowing it. With the black materia in Sephiroth's possession, the party desperately pursues the shape-shifting Genova creature northward, following ancient maps and Cetra ruins toward a place marked only as the City of the Ancients. Aerith becomes increasingly withdrawn during the journey, experiencing visions and dreams that she won't fully explain to her companions. What she's experiencing are the genetic memories of her people, fragmented recollections of the Cetra's final days, their last desperate attempts to save their civilization from the alien destroyer that had infiltrated their ranks. She's also receiving guidance from something she describes as the voices of the planet, communications that only she can hear. The Forgotten Capital, when they finally reach it, is breathtakingly beautiful and profoundly sad. Picture a city built entirely from what look like enormous conch shells and coral formations, with crystal-clear pools reflecting structures that seem to grow from the earth itself, rather than being constructed. This is architecture in harmony with nature, representing everything humanity lost when it chose industrial domination over environmental cooperation. The city's empty. It has been for 2,000 years, but it's not dead. Plant life has grown through and around the structures, and the air itself seems to hum with spiritual energy. This is where the last of the Cetra made their final stand against Genova, and traces of that ancient battle still linger in the very stones. At the city's heart stands an altar surrounded by pools of the clearest water anyone has ever seen. This isn't just a place of worship, it's a communication device that allows the Cetra to speak directly with the planet's consciousness. When Aerith approaches this altar, she's not just coming to a sacred place. She's coming home to the last remnant of her people's civilization. It's here that Aerith reveals the truth about Holy, a spell that represents the planet's ultimate immune response. Unlike other magic in this world, Holy isn't something humans created or discovered. It's the planet's own defense mechanism, designed to eliminate any threat to life itself. But here's the terrifying aspect of Holy that makes Aerith's decision so difficult. It doesn't distinguish between different types of threats. Holy will destroy Meteor, yes, but it will also destroy anything else it perceives as dangerous to the planet's survival. Given humanity's track record, the Mako reactors, the environmental destruction, the endless wars, there's a very real possibility that Holy will decide humans themselves are the problem and wipe them out along with the asteroid. Aerith knows this. She understands that calling upon Holy might save the planet by destroying the very people she's trying to protect. But she also knows it's the only power capable of stopping Meteor, and without it, everything will die anyway. She's choosing between certain extinction and possible extinction, hoping that somehow, if she guides Holy's power from within the lifestream itself, she can help it distinguish between humanity's destructive impulses and their capacity for love and growth. The spell can only be cast from this specific altar by someone with Cetra blood, and the person who casts it must join the lifestream, must die, to guide its power. Aerith has known this from the moment she understood what Sephiroth was planning. Her entire journey northward has been a funeral march toward her own necessary sacrifice. Her entire journey northward has been a funeral march toward her own necessary sacrifice. To understand what happens next, we need to talk about something called the life stream. The life stream is essentially the planet's circulatory system for spiritual energy. Imagine a river of glowing green energy that flows through the planet like blood through veins, connecting all living things. When any creature dies, whether it's a human, an animal, or even a plant, their spiritual essence joins this flow. The life stream contains the accumulated knowledge, memories, and experiences of every life that has ever existed on the planet. When Shinra is pulling Mako energy out of the planet, that's what it's draining. That's what's burning. The life stream. This isn't just abstract philosophy in this world, it's literal reality. The green Mako energy that powers Midgar is actually refined life stream, which means Shinra has been harvesting and burning the spiritual essence of the dead to keep the lights on. When Aerith casts Holy, she knows the spell will only work if someone guides its power from within the life stream itself. That's why her death is necessary, not just to cast the spell, but to join that river of souls and help Holy distinguish between what needs to be destroyed, Meteor, and potentially humanity's destructive impulses, and what needs to be preserved, the capacity for love, growth, and redemption that makes life worth saving. As Sephiroth, or rather the Genova creature wearing his face, descends from above like a dark angel and runs her through with his impossibly long sword, Aerith becomes part of something larger than herself. As Aerith completes her prayer, there's a moment of perfect stillness. The water around the altar seems to glow with an inner light, and for just a moment, it feels like she might have succeeded. Like Holy has been cast and the world might be saved. Cloud and his friends arrive at that exact moment, rushing down the steps toward the altar. They can see Aerith kneeling there, and relief floods through them. They've made it in time. She's safe. But then a shadow falls across the altar. High above, a figure with flowing silver hair and a black wing descends slowly, deliberately, like a dark angel announcing judgment. It's Sephiroth, or rather, the Genova creature that's been wearing his face throughout their journey. In his hands is the Masamune, that impossibly long sword that seems to shimmer with its own malevolent light. The moment stretches out like an eternity. Aerith looks up, and there's no surprise in her eyes, only a deep, resigned sadness. She'd known this was coming. She'd seen this moment in her visions, understood that this is the price that had to be paid. As the blade pierces through her body, Aerith becomes part of something larger than herself. Her individual consciousness joins the collective wisdom of every soul that has ever lived. But she retains enough of her identity to influence Holy's power when the time comes. The white materia that falls from her hands into the water below carries with it the activated spell. The white materia that falls from her hands into the water below carries with it the activated spell, but Holy remains locked away by Sephiroth's will, waiting for the moment when his control finally breaks. Aerith's death shatters something fundamental in Cloud and his companions. They believed they were the heroes of this story, and that they could save everyone if they just fought hard enough and made the right choices. But watching Aerith die in front of them, knowing that she'd foreseen this moment and walked into it anyway, forces them to confront a terrible truth about the nature of their quest. They haven't been in control of this story at all. They've been dancing to Sephiroth's tune from the very beginning, and the most devastating example of this manipulation had happened weeks earlier at a place called the Temple of the Ancients. The Temple of the Ancients sequence is where the game's themes about identity and free will come to a head. Cloud's discovery that he handed the black materia to Sephiroth isn't just a plot twist. It's a violation of the most fundamental kind. It forces him to confront the fact that his sense of agency, his belief that he's in control of his own actions, is an illusion. The black materia isn't just a powerful artifact. It's a crystallized piece of the planet's knowledge, containing the information needed to summon Meteor. The fact that it's housed in the Temple of the Ancients, protected by puzzles and guardians, shows that the Cetra understood its danger. They built the temple not just to contain the materia, but to ensure that anyone who sought it would have to prove their wisdom and restraint. Cloud's inability to resist Sephiroth's control isn't a character flaw. It's a symptom of his condition. The Genova cells in his body create a psychic link that Sephiroth can exploit, turning Cloud into a puppet dancing to his will. Every time Cloud thinks he's acting of his own free will, he's actually following a script written by his enemy. The horror of this situation is amplified by the fact that Cloud is aware of what's happening, but powerless to stop it. He can feel his body moving against his will, hear his own voice saying things he doesn't want to say. It's a form of psychological torture that strikes at the very core of what makes us human, our sense of autonomy and self-determination. The puppet metaphor runs throughout the game, but it's most explicit in Cloud's relationship with Sephiroth. Cloud isn't just being controlled, he's being performed, turned into a character in Sephiroth's story. His false memories, his borrowed personality, even his relationships with others. All of it is being orchestrated by someone who sees him as nothing more than a tool to be used and discarded. The Northern Crater is more than just the final dungeon. It's the wound that Genova left on the planet when it first arrived 2,000 years ago. The crater's structure, with its spiraling passages and organic architecture, resembles the inside of a living creature. In many ways, that's exactly what it is, a scar on the planet's flesh that is never fully healed. The deeper the party descends into the crater, the more alien the environment becomes. The walls pulse with veins of Mako energy. The air shimmers with psychic interference, and reality itself seems to bend around the presence of something that doesn't belong in this world. This isn't just atmosphere. It's the planet's immune system responding to the presence of an alien invader. At the crater's heart, Sephiroth has cocooned himself in crystallized Mako, slowly merging his consciousness with the life stream. The image is both beautiful and terrifying. He looks like an angel suspended in green crystal, but his presence is gradually corrupting the planet's spiritual essence. He's not just absorbing power, he's transforming the very nature of life itself. The final confrontation with Sephiroth's true form reveals the extent of his transformation. He's no longer entirely human. His body's been reshaped by Genova's influence. His consciousness expanded beyond mortal limitations. He's become something alien and terrible, retaining human intelligence and ambition while gaining the power to act on a cosmic scale. The battle itself is more than just a fight. It's a clash between two different visions of what life should be. Sephiroth represents the desire to transcend mortality through power and domination, while Cloud represents the choice to remain human despite all the pain and limitation that entails. The game's final act takes place as much in the spiritual realm as in the physical one. When Sephiroth's physical form is destroyed, his consciousness retreats into the lifestream itself. Cloud follows him there, and their final battle takes place in a realm of pure spiritual energy, where the rules of physical reality don't apply. Here, stripped of all pretense and material form, the true nature of both characters is revealed. Cloud's victory in the lifestream isn't about superior strength or skill. It's about the fundamental difference between their approaches to existence. Sephiroth seeks to dominate and control, to impose his will on reality itself. Cloud chooses to accept himself as he is, flaws and all, and to fight for the connections he's made with others. The lifestream sequence also reveals Aerith's continued presence in the story. Death in the world of Final Fantasy VII isn't an ending, it's a transformation. Aerith's consciousness has joined the lifestream, and from within this river of souls, she can guide the planet's response to the crisis above. When Holy finally activates after Sephiroth's defeat, it's not enough to completely destroy Meteor. The spell's powerful, but the massive asteroid is too close to the planet. This is where Aerith's sacrifice reveals its true purpose. She guides the entire life stream to the planet's surface, combining the power of every soul that has ever lived with Holy's divine energy. The sight of the life stream erupting from the earth is one of the most beautiful and terrible images in gaming. It's literally the planet's life force made visible, a river of green energy representing the accumulated wisdom and power of countless generations. It's as if the planet itself is making a final stand, calling upon every soul that has ever existed to protect the continuity of life. The game's ending, set 500 years in the future, is deliberately ambiguous. We see Red 13, one of Cloud's companions who has extended lifespan, running through a landscape where nature has reclaimed the ruins of Midgar, the massive city now overgrown with vegetation. The sight is both beautiful and sobering. It suggests that while life has survived, human civilization as we know it ended. The ending raises questions that it doesn't answer. Did humanity survive the convergence of Holy and Meteor? Did they learn from their mistakes? The ambiguity is intentional. Final Fantasy VII isn't interested in providing easy answers about humanity's fate. What matters isn't whether humanity survived, but whether life itself continues. The planet endures, the life stream flows on, and somewhere in that endless cycle of death and rebirth, the love and sacrifice of characters like Aerith and Cloud has become part of something larger and eternal. To put a button on the story, the animated movie, Advent Children, revealed that humanity did, in fact, survive the meteor crash. It had a rough go of it, and it's still trying to recover, but Aerith's actions were not in vain, and Sephiroth did not win at the end of the day. The relationship between Cloud and Sephiroth serves as the game's central exploration of identity. Both characters discover that their sense of self is built on lies, but their responses define who they really are. Sephiroth's reaction to learning the truth about his origins is to construct an even grander lie. If his human identity was false, then he'll become something beyond human, a god who makes questions of identity irrelevant through sheer power. Cloud's journey is harder because it requires accepting limitation and vulnerability. He must acknowledge that he's not the hero he pretended to be, that his memories are false, that his entire sense of self is built on lies. But in accepting these truths, he becomes something Sephiroth never could, genuinely human. The game suggests that identity isn't about the memories we carry or the roles we think we're meant to play. It's about the choices we make when everything else is stripped away. Cloud becomes a hero not because he was destined to be one, but because he chose to be one. The Shinra Electric Power Company embodies the banality of evil, not mustache-twirling villainy, but the systematic prioritization of profit over planetary health. The Mako reactors aren't just polluting the environment, they are literally draining the planet's life force, turning spiritual essence into commodified energy. President Shinra genuinely believes his company has brought prosperity and order to the world. And he's not entirely wrong. Midgar is a testament to human ingenuity, even as it's a monument to environmental destruction. This moral complexity gives the game's environmental message its power. It's not enough to simply oppose the system. You have to imagine something better. Nearly every major character is defined by trauma that has shaped their understanding of themselves and the world. Cloud's elaborate false persona isn't just the result of Mako poisoning. It's his psyche's attempt to create a version of himself that could have prevented the tragedies he witnessed. Sephiroth's burning of Nibelheim wasn't just madness. It was his attempt to destroy the world that had lied to him, to remake reality according to his own will. Tifa's careful handling of Cloud's mental state reflects her understanding that identity is fragile and memories can be more painful than helpful. The game doesn't offer easy healing for those traumas. Instead, it suggests that trauma becomes part of who we are, and the goal isn't to overcome it, but to integrate it into a coherent sense of self. Cloud doesn't get his real memories back. He learns to live with the knowledge that his memories are a mixture of truth and fiction. Final Fantasy VII succeeds because it functions as modern mythology, using its science fiction setting to explore universal human experiences. Cloud's struggle with false memories reflects contemporary concerns about authenticity in an age of constructed online personas. Sephiroth's transformation mirrors anxieties about how power corrupts, with the real sacrifices that activists make every day. The game's environmental message has only become more relevant as climate change has become increasingly urgent. The image of a massive corporation draining the planet's life force while those in power convince themselves that the benefits outweigh the costs feels like direct commentary on contemporary environmental politics. In the end, Final Fantasy VII's greatest achievement is showing us that even in a world determined to destroy everything beautiful, there's still room for hope. Aerith's garden in the ruined church isn't just a symbol, it's a promise that life will find a way to continue, that beauty will emerge from the most unlikely places. The game's final message isn't that humanity will definitely survive its mistakes. It's that the effort to survive, to do better, to protect what we love, is what makes us human. Cloud doesn't save the world because he's special. He saves it because he cares enough to try, and that caring is something any of us can choose to embrace. 27 years after its release, Final Fantasy VII continues to move people because it recognizes something fundamental about the human condition. We are all struggling with questions of identity and purpose, trying to figure out who we really are beneath the roles we play. The game suggests that the answer isn't found in achieving perfect self-understanding, but in the connections we make with others and the choices we make to protect what matters. The Flower Girl's garden still blooms in that ruined church, proof that even in the darkest places, life persists. Beauty grows from barren ground. Hope survives against all odds. And sometimes, if we're very lucky and very brave, that's enough to save the world. Thanks for listening.